I was at the airport, even though I wasn't supposed to be coming. That alone should tell you something about me. I still showed up. I always did. I told myself I was just there to help with bags, to say goodbye properly. Nothing more. I was holding my phone in my hand, screen lit up, boarding passes open. Mine was there too. I hadn't deleted it yet. I kept telling myself that didn't mean anything. Just habit. I heard my daughter's voice before I saw her. I recognized the tone right away. Loose, careless, the voice she uses when she thinks she's safe. She said it exactly like this. No whisper. No shame. Like it was a punchline. That useless old woman paid for the entire trip. I'll just tell her there's no seat on the plane. Then her husband laughed. That part stuck worse than the words. The laugh wasn't surprised. It was easy, like they'd said it before. I didn't step out. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't drop anything or gasp or do anything that would make a scene. I just stood there, half hidden by a concrete column, feeling my face go hot and then strangely blank. The airport coffee nearby smelled burnt and old, like it had been sitting too long. I remember thinking that was fitting. I stayed still. Not brave. Not calm. Just frozen. My name is Elowyn Price, 70 years old. In that moment, it clicked. I hadn't been forgotten. I hadn't been left out by accident. I hadn't misunderstood anything. I wasn't uninvited. I was removed. I didn't confront them. I didn't walk away either. I stood there long enough to hear them talk about luggage, about timing, about how nice it would be to travel without worrying about anyone else. Something in me closed, not loudly, not cleanly, just enough to change what came next. When I finally turned around, I didn't go home the way I usually did. I didn't leave the airport angry. I left embarrassed. There's a difference. Anger feels tall. Embarrassment makes you fold in on yourself, like you're trying to disappear without anyone noticing. I paid for the trip with time, years of it. Extra shifts I didn't need to take anymore. Weekends I said no to myself because I told myself I'd say yes to them later. I didn't count the money back then. I counted the hours, the months, the quiet nights where I stayed home and told myself it would be worth it. I wanted to matter. That's the part people don't like to hear. It sounds needy. It is, but it's also true. I wanted my daughter to look at me and think, she's still part of this. She still belongs. Naomi sold the trip like it was a gift for all of us. She said, "Mom, this is a family thing." She said, "We'll finally do something together." She said, "You've earned this." I remember saying, "It's fine." When the plans kept changing, I remember saying, "Whatever works." When my name slipped off the itinerary, I remember smiling into the phone while my stomach tightened. I believed her because I wanted to, because believing her felt better than admitting I was being edged out inch by inch. At one point, I asked, "Are you sure this isn't too much?" Naomi laughed and said, "Stop worrying. You're helping us. That's what matters. Helping, not joining." I still had the envelope in my bag that day. I'd brought it like a fool. Inside were copies of confirmations. Printed neat and careful, the paper smelled like old glue and dust. I kept touching it, like proof that I was involved. I wasn't noble about any of this. I wasn't generous in some pure way. I was lonely. I was scared of becoming optional. And honestly, have you ever paid for something just to stay relevant? Don't answer fast. By the time I got to my car, I understood something I hadn't wanted to before. Paying didn't buy me a place. It just made it easier for them to imagine I wasn't there at all. By the time I got home, the excuses were already lining up in my head like they'd been waiting. No room at the hotel. Too much walking for you. You'll be more comfortable at home. We didn't want you to feel pressured. I'd heard every version of them, not all at once. Over weeks. Dripped out slow so I wouldn't notice the shape they were making. What got to me wasn't what they said. It was how easily they said it. Smooth, no pauses. Like Naomi had practiced the lines in the mirror. Like she'd already tested them on someone else and knew they worked. I kept thinking about all the times I adjusted myself to fit their plans. Left early, ate later, sat quieter, took the smaller bed, drove myself so I wouldn't be in the way. I told myself that's what being easy meant. That's what being loved looked like at this age. The phrase "no seat" wouldn't leave me alone. It's such a small thing. 4 words. No seat on the plane. Not we don't want you there. Not we're traveling without you. Just no seat. Like I was luggage that didn't make the cut. I stood in my kitchen with my keys in my hand, replaying her voice. The way she said it, like it was obvious. Like the decision had been made long before that morning. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped them. I had to set them down on the counter and wait for my fingers to calm. That's when it finally landed. It was never about space. They had space. They had money. They had options. What they didn't have was the desire to be uncomfortable, to slow down, to explain things twice, to make room for someone who reminded them of time passing. It was about comfort. Theirs. I'd been flexible for so long I didn't notice when flexibility turned into invisibility. And I have to ask this, because it matters. At what point does being flexible turn into being erased? I don't have a clean answer. I just know that somewhere along the way, I crossed it. I left the airport without saying a word. No goodbye. No scene. I didn't even look back to see if they noticed me walking away. I just kept moving. Like if I slowed down, I'd do something I couldn't undo. I sat in my car longer than I needed to. Engine off. Radio off. Hands on the wheel like I was waiting for instructions. The steering wheel smelled like lemon wipes. Sharp. Clean. Out of place with how I felt. I pulled my phone out and opened Naomi's name. My thumb hovered there. I swear it did. I could already hear myself asking, why would you say that? I could hear her voice getting defensive, or sweet, or annoyed. Any of the 3, I didn't press call. That scared me more than the anger. Anger I know how to handle. Anger burns and then it fades. This felt colder, like something settling instead of flaring. I thought, maybe I should talk to someone who isn't part of this mess. So I called a number I hadn't used in years, an estate attorney named Harold Beck. I met him once, back when my husband died and I needed paperwork done. We weren't close. That was the point. He answered and said my name like he had to pull it from a file. Ms. Price, it's Elowin, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. There was a pause. Then, how can I help you? I didn't tell him about the airport. I didn't tell him about the sentence or the laughter. I didn't ask how to punish anyone. I asked one thing. If I do nothing, I said, what happens? He didn't rush to answer. That told me everything. He finally said, then everything stays exactly as it is. I hung up after that, hands still tight on the wheel. I wasn't calm yet. I wasn't brave. But for the first time that day, I wasn't reacting either. So tell me honestly, do you think it's worse to yell in the moment or to go silent on purpose? I met Harold Beck 2 days later. His office was quiet in that way that feels intentional, like noise isn't allowed to have opinions there. He didn't waste time easing me in. He opened a paper folder and started talking like this was weather. Right now, he said, everything is automatic. That word landed heavy. Automatic. Like a door that opens whether you're ready or not. He kept going. Your daughter is the default beneficiary on most accounts. If something happens, the transfer is immediate. No approval needed. No pause. Default. That one was worse. It made me feel like I'd stepped aside without noticing. I asked, how much control would she have? He looked at the page, then at me. All of it. He didn't say it cruelly. He said it like a fact you don't argue with. I nodded like I understood, but my chest felt tight. It was that easy. No big speech, no family meeting, just paperwork doing what paperwork does. I thought about my house, the hallway I still walk at night without turning on lights, the chair by the window that still faces the street. I pictured Naomi and her husband moving through it, deciding what stayed and what went. I pictured my things becoming choices. I asked, and if I don't change anything? Harold didn't answer right away. He closed the folder. Slow. The paper made a dry cracking sound that felt louder than it should have. Then, he said, "Nothing changes until it changes all at once." That's when I finally understood. Paris wasn't the point. The trip wasn't some big betrayal out of nowhere. It was a rehearsal, a way to see how far they could go without me pushing back. A test to see if I'd stay quiet when it counted. I sat there thinking about how patient they'd been, how polite, how careful. Kids don't stop being kids, I guess. They just get better at waiting. Harold leaned back and asked, "Do you want to talk about options?" I looked at the folder on his desk. Then at my hands, I said yes. I went back to Harold's office the next morning. No coffee, no small talk. I sat down like this was a doctor's appointment I'd been putting off too long. He slid the papers toward me. "Take your time," he said. I almost laughed. Time was the one thing I kept giving away. I signed slowly, too slowly. My hand didn't trust me yet. First, names came off. Naomi's, her husband's, one line at a time, no ceremony, just erasing access. I felt my stomach flip when Harold said, "This removes them from medical decisions." Like I was being cruel instead of careful. Then new names went on. People who'd never asked me for anything. People who showed up without keeping score. Harold didn't comment. He just nodded and turned pages. "This changes financial authority," he said. "Good." I answered. My voice surprised me. I signed again. The pen slipped and left a crooked line under my name. I stared at it longer than I should have. Part of me wanted to start over, make it neat, make it right. Harold shook his head slightly. "It's fine," he said. "It's still valid." That felt like a metaphor I didn't ask for. I felt sick halfway through, cold, like I'd stepped too far. I thought about Naomi as a kid, asking for help with homework, asking if I'd stay up with her when she couldn't sleep. I swallowed and kept going. There was no dramatic moment, no music, no speech about boundaries or respect, just ink drying on paper. When we finished, Harold stacked the documents and said, "These take effect immediately, immediately." Another word that landed hard. I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel powerful. I felt late, like I should have done this years ago, before things got so quiet between us. I stood up and asked, "That's it," he said. "That's it." I walked out holding copies like they were fragile. In the hallway, my hands finally stopped shaking. Not because I felt better, because the decision had weight now. It wasn't floating anymore. "So tell me, would you need paperwork to protect yourself from your own family?" They started sending photos the next day, Naomi smiling in front of things I recognized from postcards. Cropped tight. No strangers. No mess. Just her face. Her husband's shoulder. The kids' heads cut off at the edges like they were optional too. She texted, "Made it. Everything's amazing." I replied, "Glad you arrived safe." That was it. One line. I surprised myself. The video call came on the third day. Naomi held the phone too close to her face, like she was checking her angles. Her husband leaned in and waved like we were on a game show. "Mom," she said, smiling wide. "We just wanted to say thank you again." She didn't look at the camera when she said it. She looked at herself on the screen. "You're the best," her husband added, already glancing away. I nodded. I didn't rush to fill the silence. That felt new too. "Are you okay?" Naomi asked. Not worried, curious. "I'm fine," I said, and for once, it wasn't a performance. They talked over each other about food, about walking, about how tired the kids were. No one asked what I was doing. No one asked how the house felt without them. I let the call end without stretching it. Afterward, I heated up dinner. Nothing fancy. I sat at the table and didn't hurry through it. The microwave hum sounded louder than usual, like it was the only thing willing to keep me company. Naomi texted later. "You quiet today," I typed. "Just resting." She sent a thumbs up. That was the moment I felt it. The distance, not dramatic, not painful in a sharp way, just clear, like a line finally drawn where I'd been smudging it for years. I wasn't punishing them. I wasn't sulking. I was just not reaching anymore. And I have to ask you this, because it caught me off guard. Can you feel distance even when people are technically calling you? I didn't touch their trip. Not the flights. Not the hotel. Not the reservations with my name still quietly attached to them. I let Paris be Paris. I stayed where I was. The shift showed up in smaller ways. A bank call first. A polite voice asking me to confirm routine information. Nothing dramatic, just verification. I answered. Thanked them. Hung up. Then another call. Different department. Same calm tone. "We're just confirming authorization," the woman said. "Confirmed," I said back. My phone rang more after that. Naomi's name lit up the screen twice in one afternoon. I didn't pick up right away. I let it ring. My phone vibrated on the table like it was annoyed with me. She texted. "Everything okay?" I replied. "Yes." That was all. The next video call was shorter. Naomi laughed a little too hard. Her husband jumped in with jokes. Talking fast, like speed could outrun a feeling. "Mom," Naomi said, smiling again. "You sure you're not stressed about anything?" I looked at the screen, at how carefully she was watching my face now. "I'm fine," I said, calm. "Even?" There was a pause. "Just a second too long," her husband said. "Weird stuff back home, huh?" I shrugged. "Things get checked sometimes." They laughed. Too quick. Too loud. I didn't explain. I didn't reassure. I didn't soften my voice to make them comfortable. I stayed exactly where I was, emotionally and otherwise. That scared them more than anger ever could. After we hung up, Naomi texted again. "You're being mysterious," I typed. "Not really." She didn't respond. I sat there with my phone face down, listening to it buzz once more and then go quiet. The unease wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It settled in, slow and certain. I wasn't playing games. I wasn't setting traps. I was just no longer smoothing things over for them. And tell me, have you ever known someone sensed trouble before it arrived? They came back loud. Suitcases rolling, voices bouncing off the walls, stories overlapping. Naomi looked sunburned in that careful way. Her husband smelled like expensive cologne, the kind that tries too hard. The kids dropped their bags and went straight to the couch like the house was still theirs. I said, "Sit down. We need to talk." No yelling. No warning. Just that Naomi blinked. "Can it wait?" "We're exhausted." "No," I said, calm. "It can't." That's when she noticed Harold sitting at the table. He stood up and nodded once. Professional. Neutral. The mood shifted fast. Her husband frowned. "Who's that?" "My attorney." I said, "You should sit." They did. I didn't ease into it. I didn't circle around feelings. I said the sentence exactly how I'd heard it. That useless old woman paid for the entire trip. I'll just tell her there's no seat on the plane. The room went still. Naomi laughed once. Sharp. "That's not Mom. You're taking it out of context. I'm not finished," I said. She opened her mouth again, closed it. "You said it like it was funny," I continued. And he laughed. Her husband leaned forward. This is ridiculous. You must have misunderstood. Naomi shook her head, already tearing up. I was stressed. I didn't mean it like that. You know how things come out wrong. Harold slid the papers onto the table. The room smelled like cologne and something else underneath it. Panic. You can smell panic when people stop breathing normally. What's this? Her husband asked. Changes, Harold said. Effective immediately. Naomi grabbed the top page. Her face changed as she read. Color drained fast. You can't do this. I already did. I said. Her husband stood up. This is manipulation. Harold didn't raise his voice. It's legal. Naomi started crying for real then. Not loud. Tight. You're punishing us. No, I said, I'm responding. Silence dropped heavy. The kind that doesn't ask to be fixed. They stared at me like I'd become someone else. Maybe I had. I watched it land. The understanding. The loss of control. And I have to ask you this, because I'm still sitting with it. Do you think it's cruel to let people hear consequences out loud? They left angry. Not loud angry, tight angry. Naomi said, you didn't have to do it like this. Like I'd chosen the wrong tone instead of the right boundary. Her husband didn't say goodbye at all, eh? He just gathered the kids and kept his jaw set like he was holding something in. The texting started that night. First messages about fairness, about how families talk things out. Then longer ones about how I'd embarrassed them, how I'd overreacted, how stress makes people say things they don't mean. By the third day, the messages got shorter. By the fifth, they stopped. I didn't chase them. That's new. Every old version of me would have tried to fix it, would have sent something soft, would have apologized just to get the noise to stop. I sat alone instead. At night, the house clicked as it cooled, little sounds settling into themselves. I noticed I was breathing easier. That surprised me. I also noticed the ache didn't go away. That didn't surprise me at all. I wondered if I'd gone too far. I wondered why it took this long to go far enough. Both thoughts can live in the same room. People don't tell you that. But it's true, I didn't fix everything. I didn't get an apology that felt real. I didn't get a clean ending where everyone learns something and hugs it out. What I got was quieter than that. I stopped bleeding. Somewhere in the middle of the silence, I realized something I wish I'd known earlier. Love that costs you your dignity isn't love you can afford forever. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're receipts. They show what you paid and what you won't pay again. If you're listening to this and something in your chest feels familiar, stay with it. Talk about it. Leave a comment. Tell me where you drew the line too late, or too early, or not yet. These stories don't end clean, but they don't have to end lonely either. I'm still deciding what peace means for me. I just know I'm not giving that seat back.